Election 2027, the real issues for Nigeria. Welcome to our channel edufy.com. Here we interrogate topical issues on education and lifestyle, learn and stir debate towards personal and societal development. In this video, we shall discuss what I consider most pertinent issues regarding the forthcoming 2027 elections in Nigeria. I read recently a statement credited to a spokesperson of the Arewa Consultative Forum that former President Goodluck Jonathan was voted out of office in 2015, not for non-performance, but due to the promise of the now-ruling APC to speedily resolve all the then-pressing issues of insecurity, corruption, and economy. Speaking from the benefit of hindsight, he noted that the decision turned out to be another error of judgment, further elongating the cycle of hope and disappointment that has been the experience of Nigeria before and after each election cycle. In his message on Nigeria's 60th Independence Day, Catholic Bishop of Sokoto, Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka, had sounded the same concern about the seemingly unending hope-disappointment cycle. His words, "Today our country is littered with the very sharp pieces of broken promises. Yesterday's dreams have become our worst nightmare." While it cannot be said that Nigeria lacks the right caliber of leaders, the process of choosing our political leadership, especially since the return of democratic governance in 1999, seems to be seriously flawed. It is said that humans are naturally hopeful and optimistic, perhaps more so in Nigeria. However, we must, this time around, draw a sharp line of demarcation between realistic hope and sheer gullibility. Unfortunately, a large chunk of Nigeria's voting public always go to the polls lacking any knowledge of the issues at stake. What did we do wrong in the past? First, a vast majority of Nigerian politicians are not worth the trust we have accorded them. We seem not always in good stead to decipher their rhetorics and nuances. Selfishness is at the core of every speech and action of this breed of politicians. They, so far, have dictated the pace of our political and economic agenda setting. They criticize the government of the day ostensibly in defense of the interests of the poor masses. When they cross back and forth from one party to another, it's all about themselves. Even when they regret publicly later, it is part of their game. They flash blatant lies or, at the best, half-truths, to play on our intelligence, whip up our emotions, and ride on our gullibility to their desired destination, the seat of power. They have effectively weaponized poverty and ignorance to a point where they have introduced the term stomach infrastructure as a new addiction to the lexicon of our political discourse. This term, in its simplest form, means inducement to vote in exchange for some quantity of food. So, for mere pittance, we queue behind them and risk our lives just to enable them access the seat of power. Then, they forget us until the approach of another election cycle. Second, while we believe in the principle of rotational presidency and governorship seats as a means of enhancing national and subnational cohesion, it seems to have blinded us to higher, compelling considerations. This state of naivety is always on full display during electioneering campaigns as people chant various slogans such as, "Say Baba," "Awalukan," "This is our own." E.tc. We seem to have descended to a point where we view every action or inaction at any level of governance through the lens of ethnicity and religion. The weightier matters of competence and character have been almost entirely relegated. Thirdly, voter turnout in presidential elections, as a percentage of registered voters has been on a steady decline since the last 5 rounds of election. From 57.5% in 2007, 53.7% in 2011, 43.6% in 2015 to 35% in 2019. At about 29%, the 2023 elections witnessed the lowest voter turnout since the resumption of democratic governance in 1999. Contrary to expectation, results of governorship, legislative, and local government elections witness even lower percentages. This is Gaita said commentary on the perception of the benefits of the various levels of governance in Nigeria. It heavily detracts from the legitimacy of those who eventually occupy these seats of governance. There is this pervasive belief among the populace, rightly or wrongly, that votes do not count in our elections. From Casual Emporium, those who complain most of bad governance are also most quilt of non-participation. The elite have not helped matters either. They sit at home in their comfort zones while voting is ongoing. They wait to churn out analyses of the results as they are released. Fourthly, The introduction of the BVAS, which was supposed to reduce the level of electoral malpractice, has not been seen to be transparently deployed, and operated cases abound where some people were denied the exercise or their voting franchise because the machine rejected their thumbprints, while in other places non-accredited people were allowed to vote. The state of affairs is another impetus for voter apathy. What should we do differently this time around? First, we must acknowledge that it has not entirely been a story of woes for Nigeria as a nation. We have made some progress towards our destined leadership role in Africa, though the journey has been made tortuously slow by some self-inflicted impediments. Second, my brief peep at the corridors of power shows that the burden of political leadership is not light. More often than not, its decision-making process involves a very complex balancing of very divergent interests. For this reason, those who intend to vie for political office must get themselves properly schooled to get an understanding of the inner workings of government. If the open expression of regret by some political actors for joining their past political associations and agitations is anything to go by, this is obviously lacking in Nigeria, though there are multiple avenues for this self-education. Furthermore, a cursory look at our political journey shows that the stakes are often higher with each new election cycle. This fact, coupled with the dizzying pace at which global political dynamics are evolving, requires that we raise the qualification bar for those who seek to pilot our affairs. In an increasingly politically complex and competitive world, we must be seen to be putting the right foot forward at any point in time. We must now demand higher academic qualifications, blended with experience, competence, and character. These must now be assigned higher weights in selecting and electing people to any level of national assignment. It is now time to cast aside our long-worn ethno-religious cloak. In my opinion, television debates and town hall meetings should be enshrined in our Constitution as compulsory aspects of our electoral process. Any party candidate who fails to participate at such fora should stand disqualified for depriving the general electorate the opportunity of assessing the level of his or her possession of this all-important blend of qualities. Emphases must be on the blend, not individual qualities in isolation. In our recent history, we have seen people elected into office on the basis of their perceived incorruptible mien, only to be found wanting for lack of adequate educational foundation and energy to manage the intricacies of governance. As Bishop Kuka put it in his October 1, 2020 treatise, the journey to greatness requires more than just good people, more than just goodwill, more than just hope. Those journeys have to be led by men and women with vision and tested character, prepared to mobilize their people toward the attainment of a goal. Thirdly, agenda setting toward 2027 is already running late. This is where the political class, a tiny minority, outmaneuvers us. They start early, almost immediately after winning or losing a particular election. Let us take our country back by setting the agenda now. Let the tone of agenda setting be raised to high heavens and let it echo from Lagos to Maiduguri, and from Sokoto to Calabar. The next president must understand the enormity of the burden he is aspiring to bear, the expectations of the people he aspires to lead. He must understand what hunts us as a people, including the vestiges of the 30-month civil war that ended over 55 years ago but has left long-lasting mutual suspicion and distrust. Closely related to this is the fact of a deep-rooted division along ethnic and religious lines, a fact that is loudly echoed in our national anthem. Almost 65 years after independence, Nigeria remains largely a patchwork of ethnic entities whose seams remain delicately and dangerously fragile. This has given rise to a country where there is cacophony of voices, as both the bullied and the obvious bully cry marginalization. Often, as part of the political game, the bully cries even louder than the bullied, leaving the intended umpire in utter perplexity. Superimposed on the above is the monster of corruption which has fed so much on our collective wealth that it has grown larger than size. As former President, late General Muhammadu Buhari put it, if Nigeria does not kill corruption, corruption will kill Nigeria. Unfortunately, our efforts at subduing this monster have largely remained cosmetic. The grip of corruption on Nigeria has reached suffocating levels. Meanwhile, the anti-corruption agencies, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, and the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, ICPC, are cumbered by political interference, selective justice, clumsy judicial technicalities, and societal tolerance of corruption. So, for the next president, national bonding is a key priority. Functionally strong national institutions is another. Therefore, in 2027, anyone who intends to drive another wedge into our fragile unity or having kid gloves against corruption should stay out of the contest. We must watch and thoroughly analyze their campaign utterances, connect with their antecedents so as to effectively separate the bigots and put them where they belong, outside our politics. The next president must be one capable of rallying Nigerians into a formidable force for the required push to our place of destiny in world affairs. He must, with urgency, build bridges of understanding and trust across regions, and must be seen to be doing so without any iota of pretense. The next president must be able to foster a seamless synergy between the public and private sector stakeholders towards building a robust economy capable of absorbing the large army of the unemployed. Private sector functionaries must be seen, not as competitors, but compatriots and collaborators in our collective drive to promote citizen welfare and higher economic ranking among the comity of nations. It is obvious that the slight relief we have experienced after the initial shock occasioned by the abrupt removal of petroleum subsidy in May 2023 is largely due to the intervention of private sector operators like the Dangote refinery. Imagine what would have been our fate if we had relied on the hypes about revamping of government-owned refineries, all of which turned out, as usual, drain pipes, no substance. What about the national carrier Abracadabra, where an aeroplane adorned in our national colors was flown into Nigeria in the dying minutes of the immediate past federal administration? Nothing has been heard after that, no national carrier, neither is anyone held accountable for deceiving us and exposing Nigeria to ridicule. In Nigeria, life goes on. The next president must consider as priority the removal of the veil behind which the petroleum sector is opaquely run by the NNPCL. The sector remains the mainstay of our economy, yet the NNPCL charged with overseeing it has its operations shrouded in cult-like secrecy. The silence on how much gas we produce and export is deafening. We demand transparency in the management of the oil and gas sector. Norway stands out as a model in the transparent management of natural resources for the benefit of citizens. Today, without lifting a finger, each Norwegian national is a millionaire due to the huge yearly interest income from the investment of its sovereign wealth fund. With transparency, ours can follow a similar economic stability and growth trajectory. The next president must focus on healing and revamping the education and health sectors currently being plagued by corruption, inadequate investment, and brain drain or Joppa syndrome. Both sectors are key in improving the UNDP Human Capital Index, which measures the probability of a child achieving his or her productivity potential in his or her lifetime. At 0.36 measure, which presently ranks Nigeria 169 out of 174 countries, a Nigerian child has only a 36% chance of reaching his or her full productivity potential. Electoral malpractice must be put behind us. Electoral reforms are urgently needed and must be seen to be honestly and meticulously implemented. We need a leader who, like late President Musa Yar'Adua, would admit the flaws of our electoral process and work honestly and committedly to greatly improve the electoral process. This is one duty the National Assembly must perform without recourse to political differences. Finally, the worrisome trend of declining electoral participation in the face of increasing stake with every election cycle must be reversed. The National Orientation Agency, NOA, and the Voter Education Unit of INEC must rise up to this responsibility. Civil society organizations should take up this task of voter sensitization as a vital national assignment. Over and above this, each one of us must take up this patriotic assignment to educate everyone his neighbor, and sensitize the largely ignorant voting public that it's time to demand time-bound promises instead of rhetorics and slogans. The time to start is now. Thanks for your time. Please send your comments, like, share and sub.